Um, so Trump started granting waivers for the Jones Act, which is basically it restricts the ability for the United States to. I think it has to do with foreign. Is it like foreign shipping companies shipping goods within the United States? Something it might have been. It was something along those lines. Anyways, what it was doing is it was restricting domestic shipping capacity. Peyton Alexander here says, we built the Panama Canal, but because of the Jones Act, a cargo ship from Shanghai cannot stop at LA on the way to Houston. A tanker from Saudi Arabia can't stop at New York on the way to San Francisco. They have to go all the way back and make a direct trip so that they don't. Now that Trump is granting waivers, look what's happening. Massive trade flowing between our coasts via the canal. Puerto Rico, which used to be forced to depend on foreign imports, now has massive trade with the mainland US. Lift the Jones Act permanently and lower cost of living across the empire. Now, there's reasons for not lifting it permanently necessarily. It's nice to have this thing that you can dial up and dial down as need be. But there's if you listen to coverage of the economy in general, people act like it's just absolutely melting down and catastrophically collapsing all over the place because the administration has done a number of things that we've always been told would cause the complete and total meltdown of everything. But they've also done things to mitigate that, like waivers for the Jones Act. So one of the first things I think of here is as California is decommissioning so much of their oil industry or crippling it, there's actually a ready-made solution right here for easily moving oil from the Gulf Coast around to California while they're spinning everything back up there. I don't know all the details or the ins and outs of all of that, but I'm just saying, like, this is an example of all the stuff that doesn't get talked about, that doesn't get covered, that then just doesn't get factored into the calculus, that makes people think things are worse than they actually are. That's not to say that there aren't things that are bad. It's just that we're not anywhere near collapse. We're not anywhere near like mass, catastrophic, out of control economic combustion. Bank of America says that lower income jobs and wages outpaced higher earners. The Bank of America says the U.S. labor market is moving beyond the K-shaped economy. Lower income households saw 3% year-over-year job growth in July versus 1% for higher income workers, while after-tax wage growth reached 5.2%, topping 4.2% for higher income households for the first time since December of 2024. Bank of America says stronger wage gains alongside solid productivity growth support customer spending without necessarily increasing inflation. This is one of these emerging indicators of all the changes that have been made to the tax code, to the like all the different sliders that impact the labor market. The administration has made a bunch of changes, and they're going to take a while to really start bearing fruit. Now is around the time when you would start to expect these things to emerge. All the upward pressure on wages, but it's upward pressure on particular wages because the financialized economy is getting decimated both by AI and by the reindustrialization process and all the malinvestment. Remigration attorney again.
Now they can use one boat to deploy the veganizing ticks laced with chemicals that make the friggin' frogs gay.
Yes, there are always loopholes, aren't there? There are always loopholes. Yeah, there are always loopholes, aren't there? That's weird. I think I just broke my brain. It sounds wrong, but it's right. There are always loopholes, aren't there? My brain wants to say there are always loopholes, isn't there? But there is always loopholes. There always exist loopholes. Loopholes always exist, don't they? There we go. Sorry, this is the things that my brain occupies itself with. There are always loopholes, are there not? Hey, that's good too. There are always loopholes, are there not? It's funny how that works. Because you're saying the exact same thing. You're just like you're taking the contraction and anyways. Nothing bad can happen. It can only loophole happen. Yeah. Yeah, Homeless Nomad says beef is just a function of Biden killed a bunch of the beef herd and it takes time to raise a cow. People expect Trump to magically make cows age faster. Right! Do you see the things my president puts up with? He has people angry at him for not magically altering the age of cows. And you see, if he was to actually alter the age of cows, immediately it would be ignored. And he would be saying, you're not doing anything. I literally altered the age of cows. Not good enough. Scott Bessent says, a familiar act of mainstream media sophistry. Work backward from a partisan verdict and then call the result analysis. I love how he does this. He just periodically takes time out of his day to eviscerate the chosen member or representative of whether it's the permanent bureaucracy or academia or the media. A familiar act of mainstream media sophistry. Work backward from a partisan verdict and then call the result analysis. The truth is, wages are up for Americans across the distribution, but importantly, earnings growth for Main Street workers at the 25th earnings percentile was 5.5% year over year in the latest data this past quarter. More than 3 times the growth experienced by workers in the 75th percentile.
Live autism update.
So true, remigration attorney. So true. Looks like we're about halfway, almost halfway to the goal right now. So if any, I guess if I go long enough, remigration attorney might get us there. But make sure you're over at forum.kingpilled.com. Make sure you go over there and sign up. So if we do hit the goal tonight, then a drawing will occur and you can be considered for the chance to win 10% for the big guy. 10% of the total tip take tonight. Thank you, remigration attorney. He takes a time out to mog. Yeah. Our mogging gigafag. So let me start this over again. The truth is, wages are up for Americans across the distribution, but importantly, earnings growth for Main Street workers at the 25th earnings percentile, so the bottom 25%, was 5.5% year over year in the latest data this past quarter, more than 3 times the growth experienced by workers at the 75th percentile. Median weekly earnings also rose a robust 4.6%, well outpacing inflation. This marks a stark improvement from the loss of purchasing power that Main Street Americans experienced during the Biden administration. Families have not forgotten the pain of Biden-era policies, but President Trump is turning the tide. The fact is, lower wage workers are leading, median workers are gaining, and the pundit-driven K-shaped economy narrative does not hold up. BLS has published the wage data for all to see, including journalists willing to look past the haze of their hostility toward the president. So here's the data right here. Usual weekly earnings growth by earnings quartile, the percent increase from the second quarter of 2025 to the second quarter of 2026. So the 25th percentile, bottom quartile here, is growing much faster. You could see the economy was getting completely out of whack, and now they're pulling it back into alignment again. These are things that don't happen overnight. There is no single policy that can magically realign all of the things that are out of alignment. It takes the policies that make it happen being instituted, and then a long time delay as it filters its way through the system, and then ultimately